Good morning. Welcome to Shivat Maharat's 10 Days of Torah, and welcome to Day 9. I'm Emily, and I'm a fourth-year student here, and I want to open up this week's Pesach Torah actually with something from Masechet Shabbat, something that we learned about when it comes to heating up food. Mai Have Allah, the Gemara asks, Tashma, Kira shesikua begefer uve'etzim somchim la, ve'ein mekayamim ela im kein grufa gtuma. A stove that was lit with wood, pomace or wood, you can lean a pot of food against it, but you can't leave it there. You can't leave a pot there unless it's been swept out or covered with ashes. The idea that this rabbinic time that you would cover something with ashes is the idea that you want to leave something covered, lest you come to stoke the coals and continue heating it. The term is Shema Yechte Gechalim, lest you come to stoke the coals and continue cooking, which would be a violation. Why am I talking about stoking the coals on Pesach? Why are we talking about cooking at large? In order to understand this, I turn to a Hasidic Rebbe that I love, Rabbi Yerachmiel Yisrael Yitzchak Danziger, who wrote the Yismach Yisrael, and he wrote this Alexander Rebbe, he wrote a beautiful commentary on the Haggadah. And he talks about in the part of the Magi portion of the Seder, he opens up this question of what does it mean to tell a story? What does it mean to tell the story of the accounting of the Exodus of Egypt? He writes, telling a story is like stoking a fire full of hot coals. The more one turns and prods the coals, the hotter the fire will become. Similarly, the more one tells a story, the more one becomes worthy of attaining true knowledge of the divine. One might think that the wise and knowledgeable people are exempt from this commandment. But the Haggadah comes to teach us that even the most righteous person, even the most praiseworthy, comes to dwell on the story of the Exodus, comes to stoke the coals of telling our grand story. We uplift the holy sparks that fill the world by finding those fallen letters of the Haggadah and rebuilding them and picking them back up again. That's kind of why when we're telling the story, what's happening is that our mouth is opening. The essence of just telling a story is when our mouth, our peh, is open. It's sach. When our mouth is open, that's when we begin to cultivate the fire of our Exodus story. And when we tell the story each year after year, we are stoking that flame. We are growing and cultivating the fiery passion of what it means to go from degradation to dignity, exodus to freedom, and to reach our own redemption story. It makes perfect sense than thinking about the rules of what it means to leave a pot on fire as long as it's covered, because Shema Yechte Gechalim, the fear of stoking the coals, is clearly a valid one. When we tell stories, we are creating new life to something. So kal v'chomer, when we are leaving something that's not covered, when we're putting a pot on something that's not covered, there's a chance we could be recreating an entire new life of that food when we are cooking it, by continuing to cook it. Stoking the coals can be a mindset. We don't truly know how to lean, just like we lean a pot on something that's covered. We don't know how to truly ourselves lean unless our mouths are open, telling that story, telling about God's niflaot, wonders from when we truly had this Exodus. And the Haggadah, the retelling of this story, retelling the story of our people, is cultivating a flame that has been placed within us so many years ago. I invite you on this Pesach that's coming up quite soon to indulge yourself in stoking the coals of our story, of helping grow that fire of dveikut with God, of spirituality with one another. And when we all lean to the left, I encourage you to let that fire grow and to continue stoking those coals and those flames of our story by opening your mouth, even if it's your first time you're doing so. Chag kasher v'sameach.